Are you ready for a piece of news that could change everything at Newcastle? Because today, the club might be just one step away from announcing its first big signing of the summer. And we're not talking about just any name. We're talking about one of the most promising goalkeepers in England. And the confirmation could come at any moment. But hold on, that bombshell is coming at the end. First, there are two hugely important stories that help explain the full picture of what's going on with the Magpies right now, and you'll want to hear them to really understand the full context. So get comfy, settle in, because today's video is absolutely packed. News 1. Simon Jordan slams PSR while Newcastle owners applaud in silence. Behind the scenes in the Premier League, there's one rule that's been giving Newcastle United a serious headache. PSR, the Profit and Sustainability Rules. To many, it's just a complex acronym. But to those inside the club, it represents a real barrier. PSR is a rule that limits how much club can spend based on how much they earn, which, in theory, should prevent reckless spending and protect club finances. But in practice, it's become a cage, especially for ambitious clubs like Newcastle. And now, a heavyweight of English football has decided to speak out against it. Simon Jordan, the former owner of Crystal Palace and now a pundit at TalkSport. In a recent interview, he didn't hold back, delivering harsh criticism of the current system. According to Jordan, PSR has failed to live up to its promises. It hasn't reduced wages, it hasn't made transfers cheaper, and it certainly hasn't made the league fairer. On the contrary, what it really does is protect the clubs that are already at the top and block those who are trying to rise. In Jordan's words, PSR simply consolidates those who are already in a privileged position and prevents others from getting there. He added that the Premier League opened the doors to major foreign investment, but now wants to impose restrictions that stop clubs with fresh ambition, like Newcastle, from climbing the ladder. And while Newcastle's owners, the Saudi PIF fund, haven't spoken publicly about the matter, many inside the club agree with Jordan. Their silence speaks volumes. Because despite being one of the wealthiest ownership groups on the planet, with an estimated worth of over £700 billion, Newcastle have been forced to operate with extreme caution in the transfer market. The result? Over the last 4 transfer windows, the club hasn't made a single marquee signing for the first team. Not because they didn't want to, but because they kept hitting the same wall. PSR. A clear example came last year, when Newcastle had to sell 2 promising youngsters, Elliot Anderson and Yankuba Minteh, just to balance the books and avoid punishment. And we're not talking about small penalties here. Exceeding PSR limits can lead to serious sanctions, including points deductions, exactly what happened to Everton and Nottingham Forest. Darren Eales, Newcastle CEO, has spoken openly about this challenge. In a recent interview, he explained that the club is currently spending as much as the rules allow, but if those rules didn't exist, they'd be spending more. He put it bluntly, if the rules didn't exist, we would spend more. Because we are an ambitious ownership group, aiming to make Newcastle both sustainable and successful. And that's the heart of the matter. Newcastle want to compete at the top, but they're being forced to do it with a handbrake on. They need to be creative, sell well, and spend wisely, all while rivals like Manchester City and Chelsea had years of virtually unlimited spending before the current rules were even introduced. At the end of the day, Simon Jordan's outbuzz resonates in the halls of St. James Park. PSR remains one of the biggest obstacles standing between Newcastle and European dominance. And unless something changes soon, the club will have to keep playing with the cards they've been dealt, even if the table doesn't feel all that fair. News 2. Fabrizio Romano says, "Here we go." Newcastle one step away from announcing James Trafford. Now this is it. The news every Newcastle fan has been waiting for. James Trafford is getting closer and closer to becoming a Newcastle United player. According to Fabrizio Romano, yes, the Fabrizio, the man behind the famous "Here we go," the deal with Burnley is almost done. Just a few final details left to sort, and that's it. The first big summer signing is about to become reality, and this isn't the first time this name has come up. Last summer, Newcastle already had their eyes on Trafford, but because of a PSR mess and the sale of Elliot Anderson, the deal fell through at the last minute. Trafford himself later said he was gutted. He felt Newcastle was a perfect club for him, but instead of giving up, he stepped up. He went back to work and had an outstanding season at Burnley, 29 clean sheets. That kind of form made his value skyrocket, from £20 million to nearly £40 million. Even so, Newcastle are set to sign him for around £35 million, including add-ons. Trafford has already agreed personal terms and is excited about pulling on the black and white shirt. And more than that, the plan is to make him the new number one, to compete with Nick Pope and one day even become England's first-choice goalkeeper. If everything is confirmed in the coming days, and all signs say it will be, Newcastle will have landed a major signing. A young, talented, hungry goalkeeper who's ready to take his game to the next level. Trafford to St. James Park? It's happening. News 3. Calvert-Lewin says goodbye to Everton and becomes a free opportunity for Newcastle. But now let's talk about a name Newcastle fans know very well, Dominic Calvert-Lewin. The English striker, who has been linked with a move to St. James Park several times over the years, is now officially a free agent. That's right, he's announced that he's leaving Everton after no less than 9 seasons at the club. And the big detail? He's leaving for free. Calvert-Lewin is 28 years old, has played over 270 games for the Toffees, scored 71 goals, and has represented England at international level. He's a proven Premier League striker, and now he's available to sign without a transfer fee, which makes him a tempting option for any club needing a forward. His farewell message was emotional. In an open letter to the club and its supporters, he thanked everyone for the journey since joining Everton at just 19 years old. He said the club had become his home, shaped him as a player and as a man, and that now it felt like the right time for a new challenge. Funnily enough, his last match was against Newcastle at St. James Park on the final day of the season. But here's the big question. Is this finally the moment Calvert-Lewin joins Newcastle? Well, at least for now, it doesn't look likely. And the reason is simple, his injury record. Calvert-Lewin has had a number of fitness problems, similar to those faced by Callum Wilson, who's also nearing the end of his current contract. Wilson is now reportedly discussing a new deal that's heavily based on performance. In other words, how many games he can actually play. Bringing in another striker with a similar injury history would be a huge risk, especially for a club aiming to qualify for the Champions League, challenge for trophies, and needing reliable options up front. Despite Calvert-Lewin's clear talent, Newcastle needs to be smart about this. The club is looking for someone who can support Alexander Isak, either as a backup or even to play alongside him at times depending on tactics. But that player must have a more stable fitness record, someone who can be available throughout the season. There's also the financial side of things. As we mentioned earlier in the Simon Jordan story, Newcastle are still restricted by PSR rules. And even though Calvert-Lewin wouldn't cost anything in transfer fees, he would still demand a significant salary, which would need careful consideration. So for now, although his name is back in the spotlight, it seems likely that Calvert-Lewin will move elsewhere. Newcastle are still exploring the market, looking at other attacking options, but they're expected to prioritize players who are either younger or more physically dependable. In short, yes, it's an opportunity, but not necessarily the right one for Newcastle. And with such high goal for the season ahead, every signing will need to be absolutely spot on. The transfer window is just getting started, and the name of Newcastle's next striker could still surprise us. And now I want to hear from you. What did you think of today's 3 stories? Do you agree with Simon Jordan's take on PSR? Would you take Calvert-Lewin on a free, or give it a miss? And of course, do you think James Trafford will be a success at Newcastle? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'll be keeping an eye out. And don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell, because there's plenty more on the way, and you won't want to miss a thing happening at our Newcastle United. See you in the next video.